Hey everyone, there's something I have been thinking about for a while and I wanted to do a video on. A while ago someone posted on the United League of Armourers asking, what modern technologies would you put into a suit of armour if you could? And yeah, that's definitely the kind of thing that I'm into. And you know, those of you who have been following me on the Power Armour research group that I have on Facebook, or have been watching my videos building my fully enclosed suit of armour, may have heard me sometimes reference Power Armour and stuff like that. So it's definitely something I'm into and something that I like to research and I spend way too much time thinking about. So I have some ideas of some things that I would love to do for a suit of armour with modern technology. Start off with, probably not going to do a medieval suit of armour. Renaissance suit of armour is the way to go. Possibly even a fully enclosed suit of armour. Not everyone knows this, but fully enclosed suits of armour actually were a thing for tournaments. The most famous example of which being the Henry VIII Field of Cloth of Gold armour. The foot combat armour, not the tonlet armour. But, you know, discussing what type of armour I would use is probably outside of the scope of this video, because it also then relates to what kind of a role I would see it having, and, you know, discussions on modern applications of power armour and trying to be realistic based on what the realities of war and combat are today, and the realities of what we can do with current technology. That's outside of the scope of this video, but something I would love to maybe cover in a future video, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about that too. Right, so obviously we have better materials that we could use to build a suit of armour these days. We have better steels, we have better alloys, and we have alternate materials we could use. Stuff like composite armours and ceramics, certain types of special plastics for stopping bullets. But the more I research materials for modern body armour, the more I keep coming back to steel, or possibly another alloy, or maybe even a laminate of different types of metals or different grades of steel or different alloys of steel. I don't know how trying to combine steel and titanium alloys in a laminate would go. That's above my pay grade, trying to figure that out though. Maybe tungsten plating over titanium? I don't know. To be honest, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on modern alloys and stuff. You know what? I hit things with hammers. I have a bit of an understanding about steels and metallurgy and stuff from blacksmithing, but I'm not gonna try and pretend that I'm some kind of expert on alloys. I'm just not going to pretend that. Now, some of the other alternatives, such as ceramics or composites and plastic composite armours, sound really interesting for the weight savings. However, looking into it, there's a bit of a concern with things like ceramics when it comes to impacts can cause them to fracture a little bit because they can be brittle, and so the idea of building a suit of power armour out of something that's brittle and could lose protective value from getting knocked around a bit doesn't sound very great. Maybe if you had external plates that you could put on as ablative armour or interchange, swap out damaged pieces of armour and put a new one on. If you had the manufacturing capacity to do that and the logistics and everything, That's an interesting hypothetical, and plastics do actually, I think plastics can degrade over time. I'm not sure about the life expectancy of the particular plastics used in plastic body armor, but you know, some plastics do degrade over time, so that's a bit of a concern. Whereas steels and other alloys and different metals might not have those issues, but they tend to be heavier. Which brings us on to something I definitely would, if I've got it, if I can integrate modern tech into a suit of armor, it's gotta be a suit of power armor. There's just no. It's gotta be a suit of armor. I mean, seriously, you're gonna use modern technology and not make power armor? Now we could go with powered, passive, or semi-powered suits of power armor, because we do have functional exoskeletons. There's several passive exoskeletons that I've seen designs for. I'm not entirely sure about how effective they are. There's passive ones which basically it's a frame that transfers the weight from your hips down to the ground by providing a structure to it, which works great for European suits of armor, which also place most of the weight on the hips. So let's say you've got something like, large breastplate that cinches in at the waist, puts the weight of it on your hips, and your leg harness extends off of that, or from a girdle or arming belt. If you could take all of that weight and then attach that to a passive external frame, or build the frame into the armor so that it transfers the weight of the armor to the ground, so the basically the armor holds its structure and the weight's not on you. That's interesting, and I've seen stuff like that designed and some things like that even built. I've also seen ones with springs and stuff, so it will actually power your leg going forwards, and it absorbs energy as your leg bends and you put weight on it, and then when you step up it reaches out. And there's several different passive exoskeleton frames like that have been designed. I believe the Russians have got one, the Americans have got one, Australia was looking into it. I think the lots of countries have got experimental examples of stuff like that. Of course, there's several in designed for the civilian market, or for rehabilitation and mobility stuff for the elderly and the infirmed. But why stop there? Power armor is, well, if you've got a little bit of power, you could go more powered. And it's a sliding scale how powerful you want to be. We do have the technology to make powered exoskeletons. I believe there was one the United States military was looking at. The acronym for it is Hulk. That was definitely on purpose. When I get some time, I need to do more research into that particular design, though I think the Chinese have already made a copy of it. They've made a knockoff version already. But from what I understand, it had an estimated battery life of about 24 hours. So, a 24-hour battery life for your suit of power armor, not bad. Not great if you need it for extended stuff, but maybe we could add a bigger battery to it. Put a huge Tesla battery on the back like a big backpack. I don't know, but you know what? Powered exoskeletons are a thing. So if we're making a suit of modern body armor, and sky's the limit, it's got to be power armor. Integrate powered exoskeleton technology with the plate designs of Renaissance suit of armor with modern materials. Awesome. But probably the best idea for a piece of modern tech to integrate into a suit of armor that I got on that thread that I was just like, take my money, I want this, is air conditioning. Oh, that would be amazing. And Adam Savage of Mythbusters fame has a video on YouTube for his YouTube channel where he goes through the process of building a personal air conditioning system for one of his cosplays with the guy who designed that same system for the... what was that program? Was it the High Seas Mars Exploration Training Camp? Something? I don't know. There's this thing that's going on where they're training people to practice working in a Mars-like environment, but they're up in the desert, so they've got they've got cooling systems built into their spacesuits so that they don't overheat during the training, and that's something that's pretty much a non-negotiable. If you're fully enclosed in a suit of power armor, it doesn't help you at all if you die of heat stroke. So, and let's face it, just the luxury of having an air-conditioned suit of armor would just be amazing. That's something definitely got to have. Now, with many types of armor, there's this thing called a gambizon, an hackathon, basically a textile, not necessarily an armor, but there's a garment, clothing, designed to be worn under it. Not all forms of plate armor had this historically. That's a discussion for another time. Sometimes it was intended as armor, sometimes it was intended to be just the frame that all the pieces are attached to. Now, I would probably go with making all the plates connect to each other so that it's not suspended off of a gambizon, integrate it into that exoskeleton to make it power armor. But with overlapping plates, you can get really good protection and overlap and have the gaps as they slide be very, very tiny. I've seen really skilled armorers where it's hard to slide a piece of paper between them. My armor is nowhere near that good. But regardless of how well it's done, you might want some soft armor underneath. Apparently, the United States is introducing a ballistic shirt or something for its soldiers, that it's a shirt that can catch 9mm bullets or high velocity shrapnel. Okay, if we have a material that is like that, and we have an integrated cooling system to keep us cool, we could probably make quite a thick layer of that to wear underneath the solid articulated plates. So the articulated plates would be the main defense, and that kind of a material could be quite useful in case anything gets in between the plates, just to try and catch it. That would be... I really would love to have that double layer effect. Now, of course, there's also impact. There are some rather interesting foams that seem to be quite good at absorbing shock. So a shock-absorbing foam underneath the armor would also be great. So I don't know if you would want to have the foam as the innermost layer or outside of the ballistic garment between it and the plates. that's something for research and development to figure out in the future, but that could be quite good for if you have a massive impact. Also help potentially protect you. You know, there's all those other bells and whistles that people talk about, but honestly, you know, there's radios and there's night vision and GPS. That's, you know what, let other people figure out all that stuff. Honestly, between the power and the air conditioning and the materials, that's pretty awesome. Now, one more thing. We have clear materials that we can use for armor that they didn't have back then. So you don't need vision flits if you can have a bulletproof or an bulletproof or armored material as the lens that can stop projectiles. Now, there's a bit of an argument about the best way to have vision in a suit of power armor. Some people suggest having, you know, a thick piece of ballistic bulletproof glass or other similar transparent armor material. Some people think that you should have it fully enclosed and have a screen on the inside and a camera on the outside. You could have both. You could have the clear material, but if stuff starts getting really hairy, have the visor come down. Just an idea. That's kind of the last of it, but between the power, air conditioning, and materials, those are the three that I'm most interested in. Now, if you have any other ideas of modern tech that you would love to see integrated into a suit of armor, please let me know. Maybe make a reply video, post it down in the comments. Maybe come find me on my Power Armor research group. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to come check it out, and I'll see you around. But also, one question for all of you armor nerds out there. We've been discussing what modern stuff we could use to improve historical armors. But what bits of historical technology or armor design would you like to see potentially integrated into a modern suit of armor? I have some ideas. There's some really ingenious ideas in historical suits of armor that I think could be quite useful if we use them in modern armor, but I'll save that for another video. If you got any ideas, let me know, either in the group or down in the comments. Alright everyone, see yous.